In the world of fighter jets, there are some established rules. You have the Americans with their colossal budgets, jets so expensive they make a Bugatti look like a bus pass. Then you have the Russians, brutally effective, terrifyingly large, probably held together with sheer force of will. Everyone else just sort of buys from them. But then there was Sweden, a country known for sensible Volvos, flat-pack furniture you can't assemble, and a baffling neutrality. And they had the audacity, the sheer unmitigated cheek, to decide they were going to build their own world-beating fighter jet. It was, to put it mildly, a ridiculous notion. The experts, the men in grey suits who spend their lives staring at charts and nodding sagely, all said the same thing. It was impossible. You see, Sweden wanted a jet that could do everything. It had to be a fighter, an attacker, and a reconnaissance plane all rolled into one. It had to be small, light, and cheap to run. It needed to take off and land on a tiny strip of motorway, be refueled and rearmed by a handful of teenagers in less time than it takes to order a pizza, and still be able to go toe-to-toe with the big boys from America and Russia. It was like asking for a car that was as fast as a Ferrari, as practical as a Land Rover, and as cheap to run as a G-Whiz. It was a fantasy, a pipe dream, cooked up over too much pickled herring. The global aviation community didn't just doubt it, they openly scoffed. The idea that a small nation of 10 million people could out-engineer the military-industrial complexes of global superpowers was laughable. The Americans were pouring billions into their F-16s and F-15s, planes that were becoming legends in their own right. The Soviets were churning out MiGs and Sukhois that looked like they could punch a hole in the sky. And here were the Swedes in their sheds in Linköping, quietly sharpening their pencils and saying, "Yeah, we think we can do better." It was the automotive equivalent of a bloke in a shed in Coventry claiming he was about to build a family hatchback that would bankrupt Volkswagen. Utter madness. And so the stage was set for one of the greatest underdog stories in the history of engineering. The world had laid down the gauntlet, declaring the Swedish vision an overambitious folly doomed to fail. The project was burdened with a list of requirements so contradictory and demanding that it seemed designed by a committee that hated each other. It was supposed to be a David in a world of Goliaths, a lightweight boxer stepping into the ring with heavyweight champions. Everyone sat back, folded their arms, and waited for the inevitable, embarrassing collapse. They expected a quiet announcement, a cancelled project, and a sheepish return to buying American jets. But they had forgotten one crucial thing. You should never, ever underestimate a Swede with a clever idea. Let's be absolutely clear about the technical challenges here. They were monumental. The biggest hurdle was what engineers call instability. Normally, you want a plane to be stable. You want it to fly straight and true. No constant wrestling with the controls, like wanting your Volvo not to suddenly veer into a ditch on the M4. The Swedes wanted the opposite. They wanted a plane that was deliberately, fundamentally unstable. An unstable aircraft can turn on a sixpence. It's the difference between a lorry and a ballet dancer. This deliberate instability created a problem, a huge one. An aerodynamically unstable plane is, by nature, trying to crash all the time. The only thing stopping it is a computer. A very, very clever fly-by-wire system. It has to make thousands of adjustments every single second, faster than a human brain can think. Back in the 1980s, the required computing power was astronomical. The doubters said Saab didn't have the software expertise. They called it an uncontrollable beast, a digital demon. Then there was the engine. Sweden doesn't really do jet engines, so they bought a General Electric F-404, the same engine used in the FA-18 Hornet. But they couldn't just bolt it in. The Swedes reworked it into the RM-12. They made it resistant to bird strikes. They increased power for short runways. The Americans watched, bewildered, and finally cost. The Gripen was supposed to be affordable, the sensible shoes of fighters. But multi-role fighters are hideously expensive. Fighting, bombing, spying the Eurofighter Typhoon was already a financial black hole. Little Sweden building a better, cheaper jet seemed impossible. The sums didn't add up, a financial impossibility piled on top of a technical one. Confronted with this mountain of impossibility, what did the Saab engineers do? Did they throw their hands up, admit defeat, or go back to designing needlessly complicated cup holders for the 900? Of course not. This is where the story gets brilliant. Not a vast, soulless corporation, but a group of determined enthusiasts working in very well-equipped sheds. They weren't just engineers, they were patriots, fiercely determined to keep their country independent. A famously small team, not an anonymous army of thousands. The key players knew each other by name. The software guru would have lunch with the aerodynamics expert, who would then have coffee with the engine specialist. Intense collaboration. No corporate bureaucracy, no passing the buck. We're all in this together. When the fly-by-wire software was proving to be a nightmare, they didn't form a committee to write a report. They locked the programmers in a room with pilots and gallons of coffee until they figured it out. This bred a stubbornness. They were told their goals were contradictory. You can't have a lightweight jet that's also robust. You can't have a high-tech plane that's easy to maintain. They'd just nod, say tack, and go back to their drawing boards. One early prototype crashed, spectacular and public. But the team didn't quit. It was a data point, a harsh, fiery and very expensive data point, but a lesson nonetheless. They retrieved the wreckage, analyzed the computer logs and fixed the flaw. Their resolve was unshakable. This was a crusade, building more than an airplane. They were forging a symbol of Swedish ingenuity. A senior engineer put up a sign in the main workshop. It was a picture of a bumblebee with a caption that read, "According to the laws of aerodynamics, the bumblebee cannot fly, but the bumblebee does not know this, so it flies anyway." That was the Gripen spirit. So how did they actually do it? How did these Swedish bumblebees get their impossible machine off the ground? It wasn't one single breakthrough, but a series of incredibly clever, uniquely Swedish solutions. First, that unstable design. To tame it, they didn't just build a flight computer, they built three of them. Three independent digital brains, all running in parallel, constantly checking each other's work. If one had a momentary lapse, the other two would overrule it. A system of triple redundancy. A democratic committee of silicon chips, keeping the pilot in charge. Then came the multi-role challenge. How do you make one plane do the job of three without 1,001 gadgets? The answer was software, not a dedicated bomber or a dedicated fighter. One adaptable airframe with software doing the heavy lifting. The Gripen's cockpit is famously simple, dominated by three large screens. Press a button, air-to-air combat display, ground attack interface, reconnaissance layout. The plane's personality changes in mid-air, like a cart transforming a sports car off-roader delivery van by tapping a screen. It was revolutionary. To keep it light and strong, they embraced new materials. Others used old-fashioned metal. Saab pioneered carbon fiber composites. Lighter than aluminum, stronger than steel, enabling a complex, curvaceous, feather-light airframe. They designed the entire aircraft in a computer. This sounds normal now, but back then it was cutting edge. Three-dimensional CAD models test every component fit before a single piece of metal was cut. That digital-first approach saved time and money and prevented workshop floor surprises. The ultimate test for any fighter jet is the red flag exercise in Nevada. This is the Top Gun school on steroids, the World Championship of Air Combat. The US Air Force plays the role of the enemy, flying their best jets with their best pilots, and they do not like to lose. Over the years, many international air forces have sent their prized fighters to red flag, only to return home thoroughly humbled. So when the Swedes first sent their little Gripen, expectations were low. It was David armed with a software patch and some meatballs walking into Goliath's backyard. What happened next shocked everyone. The little Gripen didn't just survive, it excelled. In simulated combat, the Gripen pilots, using their superior situational awareness and the jet's agility, were scoring kills against much larger, more expensive American aircraft. In one famous engagement, a single Gripen managed to shoot down an F-16 Block 50, one of the most potent fighters in the US Air Force inventory from beyond visual range. The American pilot never even knew what hit him. The Gripen's combination of a small radar signature, a clever radar and advanced missiles proved to be utterly lethal. The key to its success was its brain. The Gripen pilots weren't just flying a plane, they were managing an information system, while other pilots were trying to interpret raw data from multiple sensors. The Gripen pilots had a clean, fused picture, telling them exactly what to do. They could make decisions faster and more accurately. They used the data link to coordinate their attacks, with one Gripen painting a target for another to shoot at, all without making a sound on the radio. The Americans, with their doctrine of overwhelming power, were being outthought by the nimble Swedes. The debriefing sessions were reportedly tense. The American pilots flying their F-15s and F-16s couldn't understand how this little European jet was getting the upper hand. They were used to being the kings of the sky. The Gripen's performance at Red Flag and other international exercises like those against the Indian Air Force's Sukhoi Su-30s, a massive, powerful Russian-built beast, cemented its reputation. It proved that in modern air combat, brains can often beat brawn. The Gripen wasn't a paper tiger. It was a giant killer, and the world was finally forced to take it very, very seriously. The impact of the Gripen on the world of aviation has been profound. It single-handedly demolished the idea that only superpowers could build top-tier fighter jets. It showed that a small, clever and focused nation could compete with, and in some cases surpass, the giants. It was a brutal wake-up call for the bloated military-industrial complexes, the US, Europe, who were busy building ever more complex and astronomically expensive aircraft. The Gripen proved that there was another way, the smart way. It championed a philosophy of lagom, a Swedish word that roughly means just the right amount, not too big, not too small, but perfectly balanced. This philosophy has influenced a new generation of aircraft design. The idea of software-defined capabilities, of building an adaptable platform that can be upgraded for decades, is now the industry standard. The Gripen was the pioneer. The focus on low operating costs and ease of maintenance has also become far more important. Air forces around the world facing shrinking budgets have realized that having a handful of exquisite fighters you can't afford to fly is useless. They need affordable, effective workhorses. The Gripen created a market for jets that were good enough and then proved that good enough could be better than too much. For smaller nations, the Gripen was more than just a jet. It was an inspiration. Brazil, South Africa, Czech Republic, Hungary, Thailand. For them, it represents a way to maintain a credible, independent air force without bankrupting their nation or becoming completely dependent on a superpower. Buying the Gripen often comes with technology transfer deals allowing these countries to grow their own aerospace industries. Saab didn't just sell a product, they sold a partnership, a way for other nations to follow in Sweden's footsteps. The Gripen's success has had a ripple effect beyond military aviation. It stands as a testament to what a small, dedicated team can achieve against overwhelming odds. It tells the story of engineers who were told no and simply refused to listen. It is a monument to the power of creative thinking, collaboration, and a healthy dose of stubbornness. In any field, whether it's building cars, software, or flat-pack bookcases, the Gripen story serves as a powerful reminder that the established way isn't the only way. Sometimes the best ideas come from the underdog who dares to think differently. So there you have it, the Saab Gripen, a machine born from an impossible dream, forged in the fires of skepticism, flown to success by the sheer bloody-minded genius of its creators. It's a story that should be taught in every engineering school and every boardroom. It's a lesson in how to innovate, how to challenge the status quo, how to win when you're outgunned, outnumbered, and outspent. It proves that a small group of passionate people with a clear vision can and will change the world. It's the ultimate two-fingered salute to the naysayers. The Gripen continues to evolve. The latest version, the Gripen E, is even more advanced, a more powerful engine, a new radar, an even bigger computer brain. It's a testament to the original design that it can so easily accommodate the technology of tomorrow. It remains the sensible, intelligent choice in a world of extravagant and often illogical military hardware. It is the thinking man's fighter jet. It's a vehicle that doesn't just win dogfights, it wins arguments. It proves that you don't need the biggest budget, just the biggest ideas. Every time a Gripen screams into the sky, it carries a message: defiance, ingenuity, hope. It tells every young engineer, every inventor, every dreamer working in a garage or a small workshop that their ideas matter. It tells them that when the world says something is impossible, when the experts laugh, and the doubters line up to tell you why you will fail, you should do exactly what those Swedish engineers did all those years ago. Nod politely, smile, then go and build it anyway. Because sometimes the most ridiculous ideas are the ones that end up changing everything. The Gripen is not just a fighter jet. It's 15 tons of proof that the Bumblebee can and does fly. And on that bombshell, it's time to end. The world is a better and more interesting place because a handful of Swedes decided to ignore it, and for that, we should all be profoundly grateful. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to see if I can fit a Gripen engine into a Rover 75. What could possibly go wrong?